I'm sorry, I had to take a call just before I left. Okay. We're gonna have to take it in here. I think this should be okay. Turn it off the sound. Anything you need. Okay, so I'd like to call the Franklin Township Historical Commission and Historical Architectural Review Board meeting to order on Tuesday, July 6th at 2021 at 7:10. In attendance are Paul Gassi, Mandich, Ann Latimer, Sally Gallagher, Bob Riddle, and Chuck Phillips. Also in attendance are, so do we have Shannon and Jimmy there on the other end?
Yes.
Hey, Paul. Yeah, we're both there.
Okay, Shannon and Jimmy, Shannon Ward and Jimmy Durkin. I hope I got that right. Who are the applicants for 100 Walker, which for which we have a COA application that will be pulled forward in something new business. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from April 13th. Are there any suggested corrections or comments on these minutes before we begin, before I ask for a motion?
I don't think I can vote because I wasn't there, right?
Well, you can vote to approve them, I guess. I don't know.
Well, just to let you know, I wasn't there.
Yeah, I know you weren't there. You can abstain if you want. They looked okay to me. Sally, you were there. Any comments?
No, I didn't see anything needed to be
Okay.
corrected.
I'm just checking in. You're mute.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything.
Okay. Then I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 13th
Right.
meeting as presented.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, Chuck Phillips has seconded. Okay, all in favor? I could suggest saying aye and signify by raising your hand so that it's visual.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's 4. Abstaining, well, let's try this. Against? Anybody opposed? Sorry. And then abstaining? Bob? You
I'm
have,
going to abstain because I'm just basically tonight I'm an observer.
so no, actually you're a voting member.
Yeah, I know I'm a voting member. I understand that, but not having done this before,
Okay.
to me, tonight's meeting is more of a learning curve than an actual, yes, I know I'm a member of the team. So that's not a big deal.
Well, I'll put you down as an abstention simply because you are a voting member.
Okay, that sounds fine to me.
Yeah. So then we will, all right, any public comment? Sorry. So Shannon and Jimmy, you're the only public we have here. All right. Then we will proceed with this COA application. I bombarded everyone with a lot of stuff, except for you, Sally, since you're not a voting member of the HARB.
Okay.
With the COA application, with the invoice and photographs submitted in support of the application by the applicant, with additional photos of the streetscape that I drew out of photographs when the Historic District was recertified by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. And I added these because the Historic Resource Survey did not show, it showed an earlier fence in a number of instances. It showed the chain link fence. And then there is a document that contains information on the building and environs, the historical significance of the house. The historical significance of the house was further expanded upon in a historic resource survey form that had been prepared in 1989 by Jane Davidson. And so rather than simply retype all that, I included that as for the information it contained. So first off, is there anything that you would like to say as applicants, Shannon and Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, it's working so far. Our dog has been much more calm in the yard and no more concerns about her getting out.
Right, okay, so for explanation, although the description of the proposed work indicates a fence replacement, the applicants had sought to replace the fence because their dog Mars proved quite adept at jumping the existing fence. And so, and then as further explanation of a little bit of how we got here, it's important to note that they understandably, in an attempt to protect Mars, chose to install a 6-foot fence because Mars was jumping a fence that was largely 4 feet.
Sorry. I don't know how. But I'll
Oh,
try.
okay. That's okay. And they had checked online and a document that the township had posted indicating what was acceptable in the township and in terms of what did not need to go through the zoning permitting process. And so it had indicated that it was not necessary to seek a building permit when you were installing a fence that was 6 feet or less. In fact, that mischaracterized aspects of the township zoning, which basically said that you could install anything that was 4 feet or less, or 6 feet if it was a certain percentage of it was open, not solid. And the fence that was installed was solid. In addition, there was some question as to whether a fence would or would not be regulated by the HARB. After discussion with the Durkins, I'm going to lump you both together for a second.
We are married, it's okay.
They agreed that when well, first off, I recognize that this was basically constructed in good faith on the basis of faulty information, as did the township. And they agreed, however, that once the fence was no longer necessary to protect Mars, that the fence would either be reduced to 4 feet in height, which would bring it in conformance with the zoning code, Or, if they wish to remove it, they could do that at their discretion. This is their option. I also asked, and in our discussions, they agreed that should the property be sold, and I would like to just to seek a slight amendment to that, that the fence would be reduced or removed in a similar manner prior to listing for sale. I would like the agreement, because I can foresee a situation in which the property might be passed on to someone else without listing for sale. Simply like to note that it be similarly reduced or removed before a property transfer occurs.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Or without listing with a real estate broker.
Yep.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so that's just and it may become, for example, the condition of the acquiring a requirement placed upon the acquiring property. And this is basically to restore conformance with zoning and to minimize visual impact to the village streetscape. And Shannon and Jimmy, this is agreeable to you as I've outlined?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we're assuming that this, we've talked about this and this agreement. I'm hoping that simply their acknowledgement of this agreement at this meeting will be sufficient for them, that the township won't want anything more than that. And it's my feeling that when this, aside from the sale, that it should be done in a reasonable amount of time, which can be determined by agreement with the township and the Durkins at that time. I'm not looking to put a specific time limit on it. I'm simply more interested in seeing that we will come back in conformance with township zoning at some point. Now, I previously talked to the HARB members about this, so I believe you're all aware of this. Are there any questions that anyone has about this?
Nope.
No
No.
question here.
No question here.
All right, Jimmy and Shannon, did you receive the documents that admittedly somewhat belatedly I sent you this afternoon?
I did receive them,
Yeah.
and yeah, we talked about them a little bit. I did not really look into any in much detail, but the summary that you gave just before.
Right, so the building and environs information simply draws on information that is in the historic resource survey for your property, as well as the historic resource survey for the surrounding properties. And the historical significance draws on information that we know from a Chester County atlas that was produced for the period around 1777, and as well as other information that was in Jane Davidson's research and information that was in the deed research, which you actually, I have a copy of. You have the original. You received
Yeah, we do.
that from the Shriners. So basically, since all this will be put into the record, without going into great detail, I have one or two things to add. We're going to add a description of the fence as pressure-treated stockade with dog ear cut at the top, since that is the, sounds kind of informal, but that's the formal description of the stockade.
Yeah.
And that was not contained in the descriptive invoice that the Durkins. So this property is significant to the township, particularly because it was owned by several members of the Kimball or Kemble family, who gave their name to the township. George Kimball was a significant merchant. Samuel Kimball's side of the family was involved in tavern keeping. And the house exterior, and in fact, from what I've seen when the Shriners lived there, the house interior, the oldest part of the house, is quite well preserved.
It still is.
Trying.
So before we proceed any further, I want to know if there are any questions that other members of the HARB may have.
I have none.
Chuck?
No, I haven't.
Nope.
I have no questions.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. So I think, generally speaking, and I've got to go back, bear with me, I've got to go back to the COA form, that we're fairly well familiar with this house. You've all seen it. Has anybody made a specific site visit recently, or shall we simply go with the properties familiar to the members of the HARB?
Well, I just stopped at the stop sign and looked at it, so.
I stopped when I spoke to you, Paul.
Okay. Yeah, that would, do you know what date that was? That's the best part.
No,
I think we'll simply go with it's familiar to members of the HARB, as we often do, this being a small historic district.
I did see it on Sunday.
I saw it today.
This is on
Right
Apple.
on.
No, everybody just drives past it all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Although the house is a contributing resource, the fence itself is not a contributing feature of the property. And I think that that I would like us to use essentially a summary of my description of the situation as the evaluation, if that's agreeable to everyone. And I will simply, I haven't prepared an evaluation at that point, but my recapitulation of the situation, I think, suffices as an adequate evaluation. So I would like to move on to the Secretary of Interior Standards, which is going to be kind of interesting. So the first one is a property shall be used for its historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building, its site, and environment.
Not applicable?
I don't know, Chuck, you're our architect. You parse these things better than I do.
I was busy trying to flip to see whether or not you included it. Is it included anywhere? So I could read along?
Ah, you want to see it?
No, it's okay. I'll just pay more attention.
No, give me a second. I may have to, you may have to allow me to share this.
No, that's okay. I'll listen intently. I was trying to flip around to see if I had it, but I don't think I do. So go ahead and read it again. I'm sorry.
Okay. A property shall be used for its historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building, its site, and its environment.
I agree that it's not applicable.
Okay. The historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historical materials or the alteration of features and spaces that characterize a property shall be avoided. My gut instinct is to say yes here.
Yes, we have, there's been no modification.
Yeah, the house hasn't been modified.
Right. Each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings shall not be undertaken. I believe I would go with yes or not.
Yes.
Either yes or nay.
Chuck, you think yes?
Yes.
Okay. Dan, you're not saying anything, but I will take
I'm here.
silence gives consent, I take it.
Yes, exactly.
Most properties change over time. Those changes that have acquired historic significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved.
Yes.
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 Okay. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a historic property shall be preserved.
Yes.
They've been preserved, sure.
Right. Deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature shall match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features shall be substantiated by documentary, physical, or pictorial evidence. I think
Not
this
applicable.
That's
Okay.
an
I agree.
Okay, the next one is chemical or physical treatment, so I'm not going to sit here and read that out. We're not.
no, that's an NA.
That's an A. The next one is also archaeological resources aren't involved in here.
Not
I
unless
agree.
we found something under the fence.
You didn't
post.
happen to find something under. the fence?
Yeah. We don't know.
Unfortunately, no.
No,
Nothing
yeah.
cool.
Okay. So nothing was disturbed. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and made compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and environment.
That's either a yes or an NA.
I sort of feel like it's an NA, but I'll let Chuck.
I think it's a yes.
Okay. New additions or adjacent related new construction shall be undertaken in a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and environment would be unimpaired. I think that's
That's
a
a yes.
definite.
That's a yes. Yeah.
Okay, so so I'm going to make this motion because I want to put into it the information that we talked about earlier. I, Paul Agassi, make a motion to recommend that the Board of Supervisors grant the certificate of appropriateness based on the findings that this application is. All right, here we go. Count. B, C, D, E. In compliance with sections B through E and I through J of the Secretary of Interior Standards, sections F through A and F through H of the standards are not applicable. The proposed work is in keeping with the current appearance of the structure and will have no effect on the historical character of the structure and environment. The applicants have agreed to reduce the height of the fence to 4 feet or remove it at their discretion when they deem it no longer necessary to protect their dog Mars. Thus bringing the fence into conformance with the zoning code. And then, let me see, should the property be sold or otherwise passed to a new owner before the aforesaid occurs, the fence shall be similarly reduced or removed. No. Before the aforesaid occurs, the applicants have agreed that the fence shall be similarly reduced or removed before the property is listed for sale, or if the property transfer occurs without a listing with a real estate broker as a condition of the transfer. Okay, before we proceed with the vote on this, I would just like to confirm with the applicants that this motion is in agreement with their understanding of their agreement with the township?
Yes,
Yep.
it is.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Yes, yeah, agreed.
No, you
Or
can't.
I will second that.
Gotcha.
not us.
Okay. Chuck, second the motion? You got dropped out there.
That's,
Okay, all in favor, please raise their hand, signify aye. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, I've got to count this. We've got 5. I vote of 5 to 0 with 0 abstentions and without dissent. Okay, so this will be passed on. I mean, your fence is up, so this is not impeding your ability to go ahead with construction, but this will be passed on to the supervisors, and the supervisors will finalize this at their next meeting. Most likely. It doesn't always happen that way, but most likely this will be finalized at the next meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to proceed with the rest of our meeting. So, Bob, if you would like to be excused, which I imagine you would, especially after being through your experiences of the last 10 days.
Yeah.
I will,
One thing I'd like to say is, I have been chatting over with Joan about, since there really is no zoning on fences in our zoning ordinance, that we will somehow come up with a zoning ordinance and then take that and try to bring whatever is applicable over to the HARB, so that we have something in play, so that we have something to say, okay, this is what it needs to be, or
right.
this is what it can't be.
Well, we've actually been talking, Nan and I have had a conversation about this, and we would like to arrange for some sort of language that specifies that, say, a traditional wood or wrought iron fence or something of that manner, simply not even have to come before the HARB, if it should be, say, 4 feet in height, which is, or 3 or 4 or less.
Yeah, if we put it into the historic portion of the zoning ordinances,
Right.
that if it meets those, once the HARB, we'd like to have the HARB agree with it,
Yeah.
and they say, okay, this is agreeable with it, that way it doesn't have to go unless there's an exception to the rule.
Right, I think there are a number of things that going forward, that we need to see if we can make things a little simpler for property owners.
Yes, I agree.
Because I would like to get out of the business of approving asphalt shingles that are identical to the existing asphalt shingles. So if there's a process that we can agree upon that's acceptable to the HARB, to the township staff, and to you, that, and we get the supervisors to agree, then I think there might be a number of instances in which we can simply avoid dealing with roofing.
Oh, I agree. I think it's something we should look at.
Yeah, so this is something, there are a number of other changes that have come up with respect to 3327 Appleton as well.
Mhm.
The supervisors have far less time to review that sort of thing than we do. And they,
Okay.
which, not, which they really should not be, if we have up to 90 days in case of a demolition, they should not be restricted to 5 days to turn around and review everything that we throw at them.
Yes.
You know, when we pass it along. So that's something, that's going to have to be a discussion with the supervisors and the solicitor as well. But
Yep.
it just seems a little, as long as we don't run afoul of any particular Pennsylvania state law in extending the time, they really should have more time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit surprised that you would give up fences. I think fences are important.
Well, I think that if we can do a certain, if we can be specific about the sort of fence that we're talking about in certain styles, I would be willing to make it easier for property owners to put up fences. But this is a discussion that we can have.
Yeah. It just has a big effect. That's all. I mean,
it does have a big effect, but I think there's certain kinds of fences that have been traditionally found in the village, and that
I think you're going to struggle to define it.
okay, well, we can talk about
Yeah.
what sort of struggles.
Yeah. I'm not passionate one way or the other, but I'm just kind of, it is a significant, I mean, that's a fence makes a bigger change than a lot of the other things that we see come before us. Most of the things that we see.
Right. No, I understand what you're talking about, because it does change the streetscape quite directly.
Exactly.
However, given that, you know, there have been a number of fences in the historic district traditionally, I'd like to see if we can't find a way to simplify them.
And yeah, I mean, we can definitely put out ideas too.
Yeah.
You know, these are some ideas that we've seen in the past and support. But I still think we should.
Okay. Well, it's not something that we're going, first off, we're going to have to all agree on this, and it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to take some time.
Right. And
Yeah,
I think,
we're going to be kicking it around and planning first, right? Isn't that what you're talking about?
the planning,
Bob?
I would like,
Yes, it'll be planning first. This will be a discussion with Joan and with supervisors and see if they want to go this route. And then once they have it, then it'll be a discussion with us and planning. And yeah, so this is not going to be, I would say, if it happens by the beginning of the year, you'll be lucky.
Yeah.
right. Okay, anything else?
No, I appreciate meeting everybody. Hopefully soon we'll be able to meet together in person. But
We're gonna have to do at least a little bit of that legally, perhaps. I'm not sure where we stand currently, but I've heard some interesting discussions about at what point will at least some of the members have to be in the township. But right now, having myself here, having Lou here, we sort of meet the definition, I believe, under the current regulations from the government.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yep. All right, take care, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a nice evening.
You too.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Okay, take care.
Good luck with the dog.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do the same thing with our dog. But our fence is not, it's in the back, but I keep raising it to 6 feet.
Mhm.
Our dog is full.
Mhm. No, the dog is a jumper. I've seen that for
He just
myself.
goes, it's no climb fence.
Yeah.
Then he says, I learned from my Mexican friend, you build a fence, you can get tunnel. You did that too.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to old business. So I would just like to preface this by saying I've spent a lot of time the past month on the Mason-Dixon Art Corner connectivity plan proposal, as well as assisting London Britain with their proposed or their planned sort of village walk in August, in which they're going to talk about the Welsh Baptist Historic District, which is newly created, and also talk about the Mason-Dixon line in two separate events. So that said, that's my excuse to then come before you and say that nothing has happened since we talked last concerning updating the historic resource surveys and the PHMC data from the map. So that one is particularly on my plate. And nothing has happened on my end on the Churchill African Cemetery. So Nan and Sally.
But nothing's happened on my end as well since I did the whole, survey of who's in there and stuff. And I guess because it's summertime and things are just opening up, I think that I want to go and talk to the church members in Avondale and just see if there's any interest there and for having them help us pursue it. Because one of their elders that started their church is actually buried there. And if not, then that's a step towards us getting something done.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel it's very important, I guess is what I'm saying. I think it's really important. It's a big project, both cleaning it up and because the graves aren't marked, there's only a handful of tombstones. I just don't know where to begin, to tell you the truth. And I think you might have felt the same way.
I think that it would be good to know if any of the local African American churches consider themselves having any connection to this active connection to the cemetery.
Well, not just a connection, or interested in finding out who's there. I mean, I do a lot with genealogy in my own family, and it's very easy to find genealogy when you're from New England. But if you're African American, trying to find out your genealogy is very difficult. But I'd be willing to work with them and do as much work as I've done for many people with them if somebody's interested. It's going to be tough. I mean, it's going to be tough. But.
Right. What I'm referring to, though, is if someone associated with one of the congregations has been active in attempting to maintain the cemetery at all, then I would definitely like to work with that congregation, make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
When we go to start cleanup, because somebody has occasionally planted plants in there. There are hostas in there, which I expect to find old daylilies, but not necessarily hostas. So somebody has planted something at some point.
It could have been one of the other two cleanups too. I agree with you. I mean, we've got to do some history and find out who's interested in keeping it up. And if it's just us, then we go forward from that point. But hopefully we'll have other people that may have family members in there or a part of the congregation of the church in Avondale that would like to help, I mean, I think it should be a group effort, is what I'm saying.
Right, no, you'll get no disagreement.
And we have the other issue, which is actually where is everybody buried? Because some of the veterans seem to be buried, maybe not down there. Sally, did you have a chance to talk to your neighbor to find out if she remembered where the church actually was?
I did talk to her, and she
Doesn't
really
remember.
didn't remember much. She remembered going there, but she didn't have any idea about the church itself.
Like up in the hill or down low? No.
No, she didn't. But she did say, "Well, let's go there sometime." I'm like, "Okay, we will do that."
How old is she, 95?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I'm gonna have trouble getting up there. Can't take you up there. But she did not, have anything specific. So
I wonder if she were on the site again, though, if it might, sort of prompt her memory a little, because sometimes it's easier to remember that sort of thing when you're visiting a place again.
maybe.
She
But
probably
since
had to come from your house, Sally, right? Because that's where she lived, right?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Didn't she live at the house where you live now was her house, wasn't it?
At what she lived there when she was a child, but she just lives right up the road from the cemetery. She lives.
I mean, I'm saying like what Paul's saying, if she walked where she walked as a child and would remember coming out of the woods or whatever and seeing things, but she's probably too old to do that, I guess.
Yeah. I don't,
Yeah. No. Okay.
I just wondered if she, if the neighboring property owners were agreeable, if she were, up the drive there, if she might have any sense of, perspective on the lay of the land.
possibly, maybe. I don't know why they would object.
No, but that's the other big issue, is that it's a small property surrounded by a much larger property.
Yeah.
And so in order to easily clean it up, we're going to have to have the cooperation of the neighbors, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to have to try and roll things down onto the road, which is a lot messier.
Yeah. It's got its challenges.
Yeah, it does. It's an awkward little spot.
Yeah. I agree. I'm plugging away at investigating the people there, but I still have about 40 to go through. But, I'm not coming up with a lot of information. Just little things here and there. And most information I'm finding from the census data. But you can spend a lot of time on each person, going through the census, because it just goes on and on and on, but you find out what other children were in the family and all that stuff. So I'm not getting carried away with that. But I found a couple instances where there's a disconnect with the Chester County records and the find a grave information. Like the Chester County record will say they're buried in New Garden. And then the find a grave says Churchill. So that could be maybe one and the same, since they're pretty close. Maybe that was just an error. But a few different things like that. There was one that I found, a child that died, but I think I found pictures of her brother. They lived in Stratford, Pennsylvania. And I don't remember how exactly I got to that point, but I'm pretty sure it would be her brother, high school pictures. So that was kind of interesting. He went to Tredeffrin High School, graduated in the 40s. So, it's just a little bit, little things you find here and there. So that's sort of where I am.
So
Plugging along.
on the census information, Sally, did they mostly live in Avondale, in the area around the church that still exists?
Mostly it'll say New Garden.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Some in Avondale. They'll say like 3rd Street or Chatham Street.
Right.
And I don't know how to zero in on the specific address through the census.
Right.
There is a way, I guess.
Right, I agree. This because at the top it says the district where they are, and there must be some key somewhere. But I had
Exactly.
the same problem as well, where they have the street number, but you don't really know sometimes what the street is.
Right.
Right.
So, but it's, and I don't know how much information we want to get from each individual person. I'm finding out little things about sometimes their occupation but not a lot of whole information. So that's where I am.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Sure. It's enjoyable.
And so is it possible that we would put up a plaque that would give people access to the digital information that we're finding? And maybe that's in place of physically trying to refurbish the graves? Because, I mean, that would last a lot longer than a renovation project. So a plaque that would direct people to the information that we've gathered. No, I shouldn't say we, because I haven't done anything, but that you guys have gathered. So that the individuals live for as long as digital information lives.
Well, to answer your question, we could put a plaque up that says that nearby this plaque, there was Churchill Cemetery. I don't know if you want to put one right there just because of malice that might happen. But secondly, for digital stuff, Find a Grave is where most people go. Like if you're going to Google, or Google's a word, if you're going to search for an ancestor, Find a Grave is the easiest way to do it. And that if we do the research, you can actually enter onto that person's grave, the information that Sally's found out, and direct the person who's searching for their ancestor that way. Does that kind of answer your question? That's what we would have to do as kind of a project.
Yeah, kind of. I don't know that we can direct them to Find a Grave, though. That's almost like doing an advertisement for Find a.
Well, it's not really. I mean, so also in Find a Grave, you can Google Churchill Cemetery, and it will come up with a whole 100 or whatever people are there, and then you can click on Nan Latimer and find out what her information is. But it's still the same way you do it. We would have to enter the information for each individual grave, which is not that hard to do.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to do. So if people are searching, which is what we want to help with, if people are searching, they can at least go there and we can direct them saying, like Sally found out that in Chester County, this person lived here, there, whatever. Get on Find a Grave and just search somebody. You'll see what I'm talking about. Either you'll find somebody or you won't. But that's the most way people, when they're starting to look for ancestors, go. That's where they go to, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, we could possibly perhaps bridge what both of you are talking about. One of the things that I've been thinking about with respect to a lot of trying to provide ready access to historical information without, publishing a small pamphlet and leaving it attached to a post is you can use a QR code to link to a website. And so you could have a small description. You could have a QR code that might link to a page on the Franklin Township historical website where we could offer an introduction, talk a little bit about the cemetery, talk a little bit about, the research that we did, and indicate that we incorporated our research to the existing information on Find a Grave, and then send them to Find a Grave so that they're just not going there cold, in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the ways that we can do it, because somebody may be searching for their ancestor and live in Toledo. So they don't even know where they're buried. So they're going to search by name. And some
Right.
people might say, well, you know, I think they're in Churchill Cemetery, which, judging from what we've learned, may not be the truth, but we can still, all the graves will be listed there. I mean, I think we have to go at it from all sorts of ways.
No, I agree. And I think that by putting the information on Find a Grave, it makes it possible to have many ways to enter that. But in terms of if we do some sort of commemorative plaque nearby, that sending them to our website for additional information and then sending them to Find a Grave, it would just be specific to the plaque, not specific, you know, other people would find other ways in, depending upon where they're located.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying we should do it as many ways as we can because people are going to search all sorts of ways. And for African American folks, I think it's more difficult than for my relatives that are in New England, which is relatively easy compared to what African American folks are going to be looking for. So I think we should help.
No, and I agree, and I do agree that Find a Grave we should augment what's on Find a Grave with the information once we get it organized in a manner that can be used to readily update it. We should do that. But in terms of if we were to do something nearby, I would send them first to our website and then send them to Find a Grave. That's all, so that we could provide more information, so that, you know, we could just have something small about the cemetery and they could learn more information rather than trying to, you know, put too much information on a memorial plaque. Should we do something like that?
Right. And one thing I should say is that as much as I've used Find a Grave as kind of my first launching point, it's not necessarily always right.
It's not.
It is the internet, but it's a good place to start. I mean, it kind of
Yeah.
makes you happy. And then if you start searching and saying that it's not right, then you can go back and try to correct it.
It's
Just
crowdsourcing, right?
Excuse me?
It's crowdsourcing, right?
What's that mean?
Yeah.
Everybody populates it. So some people do better research than others. So sometimes bad research get put in.
Right.
So I mean, that's like ancestry.com. They give you leaves and all that, but sometimes those leaves are incorrect.
Right, correct. But at
Yeah.
least it's a place to start
Yeah.
because
Oh.
and then you can start going. The other thing that's weird about Find a Grave is that, you know, people register to take care of that grave. And I had to fight Penny, her name was, for my ancestor's grave in Wilmington. And she had 25,000 graves that she had gone in and researched. And she was not going to give me my dad's grave, and I had to fight her. It's really very strange. So Find a Grave is an odd whole thing. Sally, have you done it? Have you seen that where you have hoarders, grave hoarders?
Grave what? Hoarders?
Hoarders. Well,
No.
if you're maintaining 25,000 graves and somebody says, you've got my dad's grave, I want it. And she was fighting me. And I said, it's my father.
I have seen where they, like you say, they take responsibility for them or whatever. And I never thought about it, them doing that, taking a family member's, you know, taking over a family member's grave or something, but that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean,
So it's
Great.
kind of a funny thing. That's all I'm going to say about Find a Grave. It's kind of this odd, kind of different life. So anyways, we should use them.
So Nan, are you concerned that about vandalism?
A little bit. Yeah.
Can you elaborate? So I'm not sure what direction we should take. If we clean up, is that a problem?
Well,
No.
no, we should clean up. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's, as a group, we should decide whether we want to put a marker that says right here, there's this African American cemetery, or whether we want to put a marker down a little further that says along this road, there's an African American cemetery. I don't know how to explain it, but I just worry that there could be some vandalism. And there's not very much there to begin with to vandalize. So I'd like to preserve the few stones that we have there, and maybe there's some field stones there. I don't know.
Mhm.
And I could be being weird. I'm just saying, I just want it to be preserved.
Yeah, so my thought might be that maybe we put a marker that says, if you want more information about this graveyard, go to, and then like Paul said, we would have a
Yeah.
website. That way, we haven't really said anything. But then anybody who drives by, somebody that says, I want to go see, then they've experienced the site and they can find more information without, I think we're okay. I don't think that's going to attract anything. What's everybody else think?
Well, here's one other thing too, that if we put a marker up, do we have to make it accessible? Because to tell you the truth, Paul it's not that accessible right now. It's
No,
hard
you
to
could-
walk up that bank. It's because they cut the road bank down, so you kind of got to hold on to a tree and hoist your butt up there. It's not that easy, right? Do we have to make it accessible if we put up a placard there?
Does
No.
it have to be outside of the road right of way? Because doesn't it border, isn't it into the road right of way, Paul?
There's
Right
no
now,
way-
they've
it's
cut it off.
Very difficult to put a marker right there.
We could put a marker right there on the side of the road, you're saying?
No, it would be extremely difficult to put a marker on the side of the road. And as you're talking, I'm thinking maybe we find where one end of Church Hill Road, and we put a marker there saying that Church Hill Road is originally named after a church and associated that way. Doesn't have to be anywhere near the church.
We have to find, and can we put historic signs anywhere? No, we can't put them.
Well, we can with the cooperation of the property owner.
Yeah, okay, so we have to find a property owner.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I get it, yeah. So, yeah, almost a directional type situation
Yeah.
But my
down this
question
road.
is, does it have to be ADA accessible? I mean, because it's hardly even me accessible, and I'm pretty good.
Oh, you're talking about
To go up to the graveyard,
no, I would not attempt to make it the cemetery accessible, frankly.
well, I agree with that. It's because it's not. I mean, it's a rough climb up up the side of the road there.
Which is why I suggest putting the marker at one end of Churchill, because it would talk about the road and its relationship to the church that was Churchill Cemetery, Churchill, and it was there, and we could just send them to the township for more information. But in many ways, I wouldn't worry about that too much until after we've gotten
Oh, yeah, I agree.
information together and the cemetery cleaned up. We can clean up the cemetery without calling attention to it.
Yep.
We could just clean it up.
Nan, I would say that it doesn't need to be accessible in any way, because one of the first litmus tests one of the first exceptions is historic. So you basically would be destroying the historic context of the cemetery to make it accessible. And so that's an exception that they allowed in ADA.
Okay, well, that's good to know. The other thing too is that if we do the deed research when we get to that point and nobody owns it, it becomes the property of the township and responsibility of the township to maintain it.
It does, but residents would have to petition the township to have to actively participate to petition the township for that to happen. So I think there's an in-between step. It doesn't automatically become the responsibility of the township, but I think that we could simply, as a historical commission, do a certain amount of maintenance with the agreement of the township staff and supervisors, and avoid the question of whether they're going to be, placed under a legal obligation in that. But I think you actually have to go before a court
Oh, really?
to do that, but the township would really have no way of fighting it.
Would kind of like a way to set it up so it keeps being maintained. We will be
Right.
the third group to go in there to maintain it.
Right.
And then it just falls in disrepair, you know. And it's a very small place. It's not that hard. It's just wooded and, you know, and wild olives in there now, which is nasty stuff. So whatever.
Yeah. And dead trees.
Right. Right. And, you know, and I'd like to carefully look at it because I feel like there's probably some fieldstone, hopefully still there from the other two cleanups that were also markers. I would not move one stone in there. So anyways, it's an interesting thing. It's really part of our heritage here at Franklin Township. 100 people are buried there.
Did anybody see the article on Franklin Township in the Sunday paper?
No.
You're quoted?
No, I'm quoted, and I'm quoted out of context, and
That happens all the time.
I'm mangled.
Wasn't
What
sure.
did it say? What did they mangle?
I didn't want to talk to the guy, but I felt like I had no choice.
I had one of those today too.
What is it?
It's an article about, it says, Ben Franklin did not sleep here in Chester County. Well, first off, I never said anything like that.
No. No.
I kept trying
He said
to,
that he didn't. No.
you know, and at some point, the fellow asked me if I thought it was sad that there was not a statue of Benjamin Franklin in the township. And I'm trying to think about where we would put it. And I said, no, it's not sad. The township was named to honor him. It's not like he had a real particular connection to the township. So I'm in there simply saying, it's not sad, you know, it's like, and go
What
on.
paper? What paper?
And I
Daily
just,
local news.
No.
yeah, I was just cringing.
Why
So-
did they pick it up now? That's been out there for a while.
I actually was sent a link. I'll have to see if I can. David Hawk, who's in New Garden Township, saw it and sent the link, and I'll have to send it along. But yeah, it was not. I kept saying, you know, I've got this long talk that I give that spells this all out in detail. I said, no, I want to talk to you. It's like, so.
I'm sorry. No good deed goes unpunished, right?
I end up feeling like I come out like some sort of fool half the time in it, but
Oh, no, not at all.
anyway, perhaps we won't talk about that any
I
further.
just wanted fame to be well recognized. That's all.
Is there anything else anybody wants to say about Churchill?
Do,
I think for the
oh, about the
moment,
cemetery
we shouldn't
specifically
worry
or about
too much
anything?
about, what happens after the cleanup? We get through the informational collection and my internet connection is unstable. And we start, you know, interacting with the African American churches that have a historic connection or have a living connection that we're not aware of. And we clean it up, and then we figure out what we're going to do after that, as far as I'm concerned.
Have you been in touch with a woman in Kennett, last name Crampton, who is working with Lynn Sinclair on another African-American cemetery in New Garden?
No, I haven't.
No,
I can get you Lynn Sinclair's information. She has the Kennett Heritage Center, and she's working with Mrs. Crampton on that sort of thing. I think there's a cemetery in New Garden.
Okay.
the Bucktoe Cemetery.
Pardon?
Bucktoe Cemetery?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
is there a cemetery on Church Road? Right near the Dunkin' Donuts? Somewhere around there? It's an old African community,
I wouldn't know.
and there's a church there. I can't picture a cemetery in there, but Um, I don't know. I would think there's one there somewhere, but I would guess that's New Garden, or it could be Avondale.
Mm.
It might be in the borough of.
Yeah, it might be Avondale.
Yeah.
There's one
Yeah.
in the woods of West Marlborough Township that was an Eagle project. There's another one on the edge of Callan Township that was another Eagle project years ago. So they're all over the place in Chester County, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
There's one on Doe Run Road, not a mile from the garage.
Mhm.
Some stones are there, somebody mows it.
Mhm. Is that African American or just
Yeah,
some?
it's Doe Run
Yeah.
and Lenape Unionville Road,
Mhm.
just about a mile and a half east of Unionville.
Mhm.
Some of the folks that are buried in Churchill are connected to other graves in Union Hill and Kennet.
Yes.
So I don't know if they're mixed in with the other graves. I haven't been up there, but it was kind of interesting that
Well,
some of the folks moved on to there.
share your information with the Crampton woman, because I'm sure some of the families are interconnected.
Yeah.
You might find something that way.
Okay. That's a good
Yeah.
suggestion.
I'll have to try and remember to send you, Nan, her information.
And Sally too.
Yeah, include me. That would be good.
Okay. What's happening with the demolition on the Black?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I saw it wasn't on the agenda, so.
Yeah, it's not. I don't.
So I don't know if this is on the agenda, but I looked at a webinar or whatever you want to call it that was done on the Strawbridge property where DCNR or whatever they're called now is going to come in and do trails and that sort of thing. And they're
Right.
supposedly going to do a historical or archaeological. Do you know anything about that, Paul? I sent it to
Now,
you.
is this something, this is the link you sent me? I haven't had a chance to. Yeah.
Well, they don't really say anything. They just kind of list it as, there's a historical portion of it. And there's 2 historical sites that I know of. And when I walked the trails for the trail people, it's so overgrown that I can't really get a good picture of it, but it's still there. I know where they are. There's 2 of the houses and they're on the map. But I didn't know how DCNR's folks are going to connect into that. The White Clay people are going to connect into that. And I wanted to make sure that we were connected in as well. I kind of am worried a little bit. We've got the Mason-Dixon project. We've got this DCNR project. How does Franklin Township historical folks all connect into that? Because there's things that are going on.
Okay, well, we'll pull, then I'll just for the moment pull the whole Mason-Dixon thing forward and we can talk about this
Oh, I'm sorry.
as part of it. So the Mason-Dixon Art Corner connectivity plan began as a sort of Mason-Dixon white clay plan, but it has been refined to Mason-Dixon Art Corner. These are topics that would unite Franklin, London, Britain, and New Garden, because the 3 townships sit in the southeast corner of PA with London, Britain at the very center of that. So supervisors from each township have been involved, and if the supervisors in every township are agreeable, single supervisors are involved, but if the board of supervisors in every township are agreeable, they're talking about seeking a grant to help develop this so that there would be historical contacts associated with these trails, as well as expanding these trails to increase connectivity to the Mason-Dixon line and the monuments associated with it. One of the problems is that DCNR has actual physical control of the monuments themselves. So to some degree, this could or should link up with some of what DCNR is talking about. But these boundaries are also shared with Maryland and Delaware. So it's a question of whether, will this stay? Will there be interest on the part of Maryland and Delaware being at least peripherally involved in this as we proceed or not? Should we proceed? I mean, this has to be agreeable with supervisors for 3 townships. So it's a little bit up in the air at the moment. But in the meantime, I've sort of been acting in a semi-editorial capacity with respect to helping develop this, simply wordsmithing stuff that's out there, and spending a lot of time trying to get a handle on the Mason-Dixon line, which is a lot less straightforward than you might think. So but long term, how this all links up, I don't know, because it depends upon whether the connectivity project even goes forward. It's really at a very, very early stage at the moment. And for it to go forward requires, multi-township cooperation to seek a grant and develop this further.
Are you talking about the federal, what they were talking about, the federal project? Is that?
So, and by the federal project, you mean, so there's national park interest in seeing the trails connect down here to the Mason-Dixon line and stuff, but whether there's federal interest, the other issue is whether there'd be federal interest in having a Mason-Dixon National Historical Park, but that's also independent of the connectivity project. That can proceed with or without it. I think there is some hope among some of the people involved that this might be a first step to raising awareness of the fact that the Mason-Dixon line, which has very real significance as the settlement of a boundary dispute in the early colonies. The Ark Corner wasn't resolved. The Ark was not resolved until 1921. And then Mason-Dixon line also has a secondary, but better understood nationally significance as the symbolism of the dividing line between free and slave states, which arose out of the fact that Pennsylvania, which was on the north side of the line, abolished slavery, albeit in stages, and Maryland, which was on the south side of the line, and Delaware, which is it's actually east of the Mason-Dixon line, but south of the Ark, didn't abolish slavery. And so it became, the Missouri Compromise turned it into a sort of boundary between free and slave states. Excuse me. But right now, I'm just trying to get a hold of and an understanding of the work that Mason and Dixon did, and get a timeline on that going up. And I'm falling asleep reading a book that's spending a lot of time about surveying. So I'm hoping that it'll be a little easier when we get into the nitty-gritty of doing it, but I've been traveling and at the same time trying to get through this chapter on technical, astronomical and surveying issues, because some of this is astronomy. I've now learned how they determined longitude in the late 1700s. So.
You're going to replicate it? You're going to do that?
What? Determine longitude?
Yeah.
By sighting the moons of Jupiter through a telescope?
Yeah. Go stand up on Stargazer's Rock.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
and replicate and rewalk what Mason and Dixon did.
Right. So, you
and
know,
find out why they did it wrong.
so, you know, there's many, many years later, not so long ago, because Karen Marshall was Heritage Preservation Coordinator at the time. Surveyors from England came over and they determined that, in fact, Stargazer's stone is incorrectly placed. And apparently the real spot that Mason and Dixon must have determined to be their starting point before they headed south is in the middle of a road. And so they hammered a brass circle into the middle of the road. But I think they may, I haven't been to Stargazer Stone. I've been to the ones that are local here. I've been to our corner monument, and I've been to the Tri-State Monument, which, because of its own history, is called the Tri-State Marker. That's okay. Anyway, it's called the Tri-State Marker, but if you look at the Tri-State Marker, it just says Maryland and Pennsylvania on the sides. There's no Delaware.
Hmm.
And so there's a historic reason for that, and has a lot to do with why Delaware's boundary didn't get settled until
Well, Franklin has two stones, right? There's one near me, and then there's one I've never seen that's closer to Elk. And then Pal Durabo had a crown stone that he used to bury because he wanted to preserve it right there in Louisville.
So I've never seen any of Franklin's stones, but they were put every mile. So there has to be.
I can show you one. I just don't know where the other one is. I know it's there somewhere in Fair Hill.
But this would also be part of trying to get trails to at least some of these locations, if possible, if it's on public land.
Well, one is very accessible. I mean, I ride by it. It's there.
But yeah, so that's a whole other thing. And so there are going to be issues as that proceeds with how grant money, should it be sought, would be used. And at the same time, there are other trails with history that's not necessarily related to the Mason-Dixon line. And, we may also want to think about that as a separate issue. So,
Nan, the one that you're talking about is to the west of Appleton?
The one that I ride by?
Yeah.
So if you park at the north lot in Fair Hill, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then you went towards Pennsylvania up the stone hill there,
Yeah.
Where it makes a turn and you start to go, the first field, don't turn on the stone, go straight, and it's right there.
Okay. That's
Um,
the second one. There's got to be one behind your property.
There's one on Elbow Lane that's in Lennon Britton. All right. So that's right. You can drive by and
Yeah.
see it. So there's one, two. The third one, I don't know where it is going to be closer to Elk. And then Powell Stone, which is a crown stone, is in Louisville.
So
So
would
there's
that be
one missing that I don't know where it is. I
would
mean,
that be the first crown stone then, from the corner?
The first one would be on Elbow Lane.
I don't think that's a crown stone though, is it?
What's a crown stone? What are you?
Crown stone is, so they put very simple markers every mile.
Right.
They put M and P
Right.
on the appropriate side of a smaller stone. And
Okay.
then at 5 miles, they put what's known as a crown stone, where they put a crown and the Calvert and Penn
Right.
arms on the stone. It's a much larger stone.
Right.
And they do that every 5 miles.
Right. So approximately 1 mile away from the intersection, I'm just looking on Google and looking at the scale, is in a pack of woods. Right
on
off.
Flint Hill
Right,
Road on Elbow Lane.
yeah.
Right. So
on-
it's right on Elbow Lane. I mean, you can see it. And
Okay.
then come our way, right? And then
Keep-
there's another one kind of behind Swans. It's really close to the North Appleton Road lot. You have to go up the hill, as I said, in there.
Yep.
And then there's another one somewhere, don't know where. And then there's Pals, who is in Louisville.
So that was 1, 2,
Two.
3,
And then
4.
Pals
Yeah,
is the
5.
Crownstone, right?
Yeah, that would be 5. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
Pal's done a great job because he used to uncover it I forget when, you could go look at it, but he covers it, he buries it. So to protect it from the acid rain, his crown stone that's on his property. The
Got
other
it.
ones are just sitting out there and they're pretty worn. They just pretty much look like a gray stone now.
It, the one that's missing is somewhere near the Elk Creek.
Okay,
Right,
can I look online next time I go and see if I can find it?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm just going to Google,
Yeah.
and if you zoom to a certain point, it'll give you a 1 mile mark.
Oh,
You
I
know,
see.
your
So you're doing
legend is,
1 mile from the one by Swans, right?
yeah, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. Yep, exactly.
So you think it's in the woods somewhere near the creek?
Yeah.
I'll have to go on my wellies and go like tramp around again and go look for it.
If somehow you can stay on the
So that would
border.
be in state, that would be in, where Fair Hill Land abuts, state preserve, right?
Well, both of them are, yeah, but one's in the middle of a field. I guess this other one, I don't know. I'll call the Fair Hill office and ask them because it's on Maryland land as well and say, where is it?
Right.
See if the ranger that loves me will tell me.
So Nan, I'll pass that, either you can, or would you, I can easily pass that link along to the rest of the members if they want to look at the webinar.
The webinar for DCNR?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what he's talking about is there was the beginning of a group that's going to start putting trails in what we call the Strawbridge property, you know, the White Clay, Elk Creek property and stuff. And they're just starting. And so they were saying in their webinar that they were going to do not only trails, but they were also going to do some historical something, you know. But my question, the reason I actually sent it to Chester County and saying, how are all these people going to connect in? We've got Mason-Dixon, we've got DCNR, and we've got the comp plan trails. Like, you know, this is like a whole lot of people and it doesn't seem like it's connected.
Well, it's possible that the Mason-Dixon will act as a subset of the larger stuff, but I think that, you know, Dave Gerstenhaber has been attending.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that Paul has too.
Paul Overton.
Yeah. So there is a point has been made to try and involve, you know, the trails peoples from every township. Scotty Crowder, who heads the Friends of White Clay Creek Preserve, has also been involved in some of these discussions.
Good.
Yeah.
There's there's a couple historical sites in there as well.
Vacuum, but how they all link up ultimately will have to be figured out.
Okay.
Okay. And when it, you know, at some point, it possibly, I think as early as the July meeting, it may come before the supervisors. If anyone Conservancy is interested in getting involved.
In what capacity? With who?
Probably in helping to apply for and manage the grant.
For us to get
The Mason-Dixon.
Oh, Mason-Dixon, yeah.
Group, right.
Is any of this connected with the Sicklerville Inn property that we talked about? That's for sale now.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to my Amish neighbors. They went and looked at it. But they're not interested because there's not enough tillable land, which would not, I mean, the Amish are great, but they don't preserve our properties.
No, they don't.
Told me it needed a lot of work. I said, I bet.
So Lund's Tavern is not directly connected, so far as I know, with, that's what you're talking about?
No, the Sicklerville Inn.
Sicklerville?
Yeah, the big
They're
one.
at 896 and Sicklersville Road, just a little bit north there.
That's Lund's Tavern. isn't
Yeah.
it?
Oh, what's the name of it?
Lund's Tavern?
Oh, Lund's Tavern.
Yeah.
Not Lum's Tavern. Okay.
No, Lund's
Not
Tavern.
Lum's Pond, Lund's Tavern.
No, Lund's Tavern. And so, you know, right now, it's not, whether it could be, I wouldn't know. It could-
One,
a
the
lot of
one
these things.
fellow a few months ago talked about getting a grant.
Jim Martin, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim Martin's associated, he's London Britton's historical commission chairman, and he's also involved in the connectivity project.
Because there was a trail from there that we thought about.
Yeah, so that's part of the connectivity issue.
Okay.
Yeah, is trying to get things linked up, and there are things that London Britain is working on as well.
His name was Jim Martin?
Yes,
Oh, I know him.
the guy who
Yeah.
guy has
Watch it.
older. I'm not young. I think Chuck is younger than I am.
Probably.
So-
He looks it.
Right.
I,
Talking about my
Yes. of
my
course.
peers,
Yes.
I would point out.
That would make a great like heritage center for our connective townships, but I'd have to win the lottery to buy it, so,
Yeah.
and fix it up.
yeah, it'd be an adventure just trying to figure out what period you fix that up to.
It would
That's
be
right.
fun though.
Yeah.
If I had the money.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's sort of bring you up to date on that, and I'll come back to another aspect of this later. So I have nothing to say about other township cemeteries. I assume that nobody else does, but if you do, feel free to. No. And so, you know, a walkable Kemblesville actually might ultimately have a role to play in the connectivity project, but this depends on how the connectivity project develops. If the connectivity project develops, you know, there are a lot of, right now, this has a very tentative quality, but you know, we'll have to see how that goes. But
Well,
I
I'd
think,
like to say that Campbellsville is going to be the chapter we're going to review at the next comprehensive plan meeting, which you guys should attend.
I do.
I know you do, which
It
is
does, as a matter of course.
July 27th. You can get the connector from the website. You can come and listen because I think it's important. But that's the chapter we're going to discuss at the end of July 27th.
Yeah, the last one was also, I wish I'd seen some of the chapter. I have to get in touch with Kathy. I'd like to see the chapter. I don't want to be asked to comment about something I haven't had the opportunity to read.
Yeah. Janine's been really busy. We haven't gotten the chapters hardly before the meeting. So I can ask if she can get it out a little earlier, but
Well,
I'm not sure that she can.
Even if I have it physically in hand 2 hours before the meeting, at least I have something to look at. Whereas trying to read it on a computer screen,
Right.
and ask what I think about something, it was a little.
Yeah.
frustrating.
Well, yeah, email Kathy and see if, say that you understand that Campbellsville's up next. And you'd like to see it ahead of time.
Right, and by that, ahead of time means whenever anybody else gets, I recognize that there have been issues with Janine's ability to turn stuff around. And basically, I've not been spending nearly as much time at wineries locally as some might have expected. So I haven't had a chance to talk to winery owners. And I really would have liked to have been working on that, but I haven't yet. I would like to, at least in terms of raising awareness by history, get some brochures into the local wineries. So that is on my to-do list. I will be adding something, small things come through on occasion that get added to the Historical Commission website. And I actually have something I need to add as well. But if anybody has anything that comes their way, scanable postcards that local, or somebody who wants to share something that can be scanned, I'd be happy to expand what we've got there already. But right now we've got a pretty good set of township maps, historical township maps. And constructing a more detailed township is, when I was talking to the fellow from the Daily News and he wanted information, that it made me feel again, it's like, you know, if I actually knew more about older township history, I would have been better prepared to respond to some of what he was asking me. But, you know, that is something I would like to expand on.
I'll have to look up the Fury thing.
I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got the stuff you've got. We did some, when we were looking at the Franklin stuff, we turned up a lot of incidental stuff on the Furies because George McCleve would get into fights with the Furies.
Yeah, I think one of them spent time in jail, I think.
Yeah. I think more than one of them.
I think so too.
Yeah. I think Fury, there's a meaningful name.
Yeah, they lived in the Galligan side. They didn't live in my side.
Right. I see. That's how you.
The Galligan Fury is not
Right.
my Fury.
So I don't have a lot to say on talks and training at the moment, except that in August, there is going to be, and I'll send out information with the details. London Britain is going to have first something down by the in the park down by the Welsh Baptist Meeting House and the Evans House, which they're very concerned about trying to stabilize. They're going to do a village walk down there, and it's going to be fairly compact. And this is going to be an in-person rather than an online video village walk. Most of them this year are online, but they're going to be talking about the Evans House. They're going to be talking about the Welsh Baptists and the Meeting House. They're going to be talking about slavery locally. And there are going to be a couple other topics that I can't remember. Mills, local mills, they're going to be talking about. Of course, it's down in the Whitefield Creek Valley.
Is the Welsh Baptist Cemetery the one with the ticking tombstone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's where it's going to be down there. And, you know, the organization of it is coming together, but they've been preparing scripts. And so I've been helping out a little bit with that. And then Karen Marshall is going to talk about the Mason-Dixon line. I guess they will do it Thursday, so it'll be like maybe August 16th or something. I don't know.
I forget when those are.
And then I think on Sunday, maybe, or Saturday, someday on the weekend, they're going to do a separate thing on the Mason-Dixon line. And Karen Marshall, they're going to allow sort of backdoor access to the tri-state marker, because normally you have to go through the park, but they're going to allow you to take a shortcut through the from 896.
Yeah.
So it's only a short walk.
I know the people that owned that property, and they always had a Thanksgiving ceremony there, the
Yeah.
Baldwins.
Yeah.
They sold it some years ago. They're no longer on the planet, but
Yeah.
they moved up to Jenner's Pond.
Yeah, so I don't know if the access is going to be through them or through someone else who backs
The
up.
driveway goes up and then you go down. a
Right.
little.
Right. And so, so they're gonna do a second one, and they're gonna have and Karen Marshall's gonna give like a 5-minute talk on the Mason-Dixon line and its significance, and that'll be this Saturday or Sunday immediately following, because the Thursday one will be at 5 o'clock.
You need to show up.
I think they want you to do advanced registration. If you go and you search, let me just do this here. Village Walks 2021. So if you just search for Town Tours and Village Walks 2021, you can find all of this. And so it's going to be the 19th and the 21st. So it will be, that will be at 5 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. And then the Saturday one will be from noon to 3. And that will be focused on the Mason-Dixon line, the Welsh Baptist Historic District, which was recognized just this year by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. And so if you find the listing, there is a register for the walking tour link that you can click on, and you know, it's free to register, but they want people to register.
So it's the 19th of August, the Thursday, the 19th?
Yeah, it's Thursday the 19th, 5 to 7:30. So my guess is that, you know, they'll probably have it set up so that it can run at intervals. So you don't, it's not, it doesn't take that long. You're talking about short walks between you know, various locations, because it's a rather compact site, and probably, you know, 5 minutes to talk, 2 minutes to walk, 30 minutes. So they'll probably do it at roughly half-hour intervals or something like that. Maybe every 5 minutes or so. They can set a new group on. So I assume they want you to register in part so that they can organize when people show up.
Yeah.
But I can send the link to that out.
I can look it up.
Well, I may send that out on the Facebook website anyway. But they're working really hard at it. I think it'll be a good local event. So that's pretty much it for the agenda, unless somebody else wants to bring up something.
So the demolition by neglect is in the courts.
As far as I know, it's up in the air. It's still unresolved. When the fellow who called me about the Benjamin Franklin in Franklin Township, he left a number for me to call back, and he's apparently also doubles as a court reporter. So I had a sinking feeling that I was going to be informed of something I didn't want to hear. So on one level, as much as I hate talking to reporters, I was very relieved when he was asking about Benjamin Franklin.
I'm not about that. Yeah.
Right.
It's just a shame because it continues to.
I understand that, and what it shows is how little leverage the act that creates historic districts really gives township to preserve historic structures and then historic districts when the property owner won't take an active interest in maintaining a property. You know, I mean, fundamentally, that became evident to me that you're highly dependent on the goodwill of property owners.
That's true.
Anything else, or shall we call it a night?
And call it a night. I gotta get horses out. No thunderstorms tonight.
Yeah, no, they missed us by.
Yeah, they just barely missed us.
Yeah.
I guess I've been watching and they've been in, but I guess I can put them out. I'll put them out. It will storm just this like.
There were some heavy hitters up toward North.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done that. Put them out, bring them in. Put them out, bring them in.
Right.
Okay, well, you all have a nice evening.
Right.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank
All
you.
right,
Bye.
take care.